Well, now that the event is over, whose storyline was closest to the truth? Was it everyone in the media or this program? Was this an event that was a political rally aimed at elections and tea parties? Was it filled with hate? What actually happened? No policies were discussed. No politicians were named. No elections were talked about. The event was completely apolitical. There was no anger. There was no hatred, violence. I'd be surprised if anybody even used a swear word. Martin Luther King was honored, not disgraced. There were virtually no signs. There was a focus on God, faith, hope, and charity. You heard amazing stories about some of America's most brave and amazing people. You heard prayers. People said prayers. What you saw was a minimum of 500,000 people who never claimed that God was on their side. They wanted to change their lives so they could be on God's side. So how did people react? How did the media react after they found out the truth? Well, let's start with the president. I'm interested to see what he had to say about 500,000 people gathering on the premise of God and honor. Here he is on NBC Sunday when asked for his reaction on the 828 Restoring Honor event.
I have to say I did not watch the rally. Given all those anxieties and given the fact that, in none of these situations are you going to fix things overnight, it's not surprising that somebody like a Mr. Beck is able to stir up a certain portion of the country. That's been true throughout our history.
I have been told that no broadcaster in the history of America has ever done anything like this. I have also been told today that no single individual has ever called 500,000 people to the mall, and they arrived. Ever. But he's not surprised. Of course, he wasn't even watching. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time throughout history. All throughout history. These people like Glenn Beck or Mr. Beck show up. Well, I didn't know exactly who he might be thinking of, but it's good that we have everyone's favorite reporter, Joe Klein. He took it a step further and explained.
The guy's obviously a paranoid lunatic who is a great entertainer, and he is exploiting something that always happens in our country when the economy is bad and when we're at war. During World War I, if people were caught speaking German in the street, other people would beat them up. During World War II, we interned the Japanese, and now the combination of bad economic times over the last couple of years and the terrorism has led to this wave that Glenn Beck and his puppet master, Rupert Murdoch, are exploiting.
I'm actually beginning to feel bad or sad for some of these people. But Joe, since you brought history into the mix, you're right. We did round up Germans during World War I, and you were right. If you spoke out against the war, you'd be tossed in jail. And you were right, we did round up the Japanese. You left out the Germans and the Italians that we rounded up during World War II, but we put them in war displacement camps. It's nice. There's just one little fact, Joe, that you forget to point out, and that's really critical to the history lesson. It's the who part of the rounding up process. Who was rounding people up? In World War I, it was Woodrow Wilson. In World War II, it was FDR. Both big government progressives. So yes, we did round people up, but it was never someone on the outside like me who did it. It was always big progressive government. Now, here's the Huffington Post. I'm going to show you this, because this shows you the contempt for the things that I think most Americans value. It's Glenn Beck's Restoring Honor rally. This is the quote, "The most ridiculous messages in photos." The most ridiculous messages in photos. Here are the most ridiculous. Go to the first, there it is. September 11th, this is ridiculous. This is a quote from George Washington, ridiculous. Restoring honor, ridiculous. This woman, some reason, is ridiculous. This man is ridiculous. Someone with George Washington, the Constitution, ridiculous. May I ask, do you stand with the Huffington Post on those things being ridiculous? Why are they ridiculous? Now the reports of the crowd size. Let me show you perhaps the most iconic image from the event. This, I believe, was taken from the AP or by the AP, and God bless them for doing it. It is absolutely stunning. Remember, just the reflecting pool alone, I told you last week, this is 200,000 people. There are people, you can see them here and here and here, and we have photos down both of these paths at glennbeck.com. There are people, look at them, all throughout the trees. Plus here, this is the end of the block or the end of the reflecting pool. It goes across the street and the crowd picks up again. This is completely filled all around the Lincoln Memorial. Back to the Washington Monument. To be exact, the length from the base of the Lincoln Memorial to the Washington Monument is 8/10 of a mile, and it was almost completely filled with people. So here's the crowd size reporting. NBC says tens, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Associated Press apparently didn't look too close at their own picture and said tens of thousands. I've seen lots of others echoing the AP at tens of thousands. CNN wouldn't pick a number. They compared the task to counting the crowd. It's like how many jelly beans are inside a huge jar, end quote. CBS strangely put the number at 87,000. Well, that's a pretty specific number there. Well, you're sure it wasn't 93,412? We'll never know the exact number, but anyone with eyes can see this crowd was in the hundreds of thousands. Traffic was clogged in D.C. after the event and before the event. Metro workers said they have never seen anything like it. The lines at the Metro subway stretched 2 football fields. They had to wait hours in lines just to get on the subway to get to the event. Restoring honor, which was the #1 topic on Google Trends for much of Saturday. Glenn Beck rally and Sarah Palin were also at the top of the Google search's hot list category throughout the day. Over 100,000 people were streaming on the event on the live Facebook event. It was carried on C-SPAN. I can't wait to see the numbers. By our estimates, this event falls about the 6th largest, all-time largest crowd at the mall. That is tied with the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. So the media can diminish the crowd size all they want, but the images speak for themselves. Gee, who thought we should have many, many photographers and cameras? And who happened to have a ticket at 10 o'clock at the top of the Washington Monument and a photographer there so we could capture these things? Oh, I guess that would be us. Fool us once, and shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.